December 19, 1944. Bastogne, Belgium. Snow lashes the ground like shrapnel as nearly 10,000 American soldiers of the 101st Airborne are surrounded on all sides. German artillery pounds the town without pause, panzer tanks grinding closer through the frozen Ardennes forests, their steel silhouettes emerging from the white haze. Every road is cut. Ammunition is nearly gone. Medical supplies are exhausted. Wounded men lie in freezing cellars, boots wrapped in rags, rifles rationed bullet by bullet. The weather has turned into an enemy of its own, low clouds and brutal winds grounding Allied aircraft, sealing Bastogne's fate unless help comes fast. A young officer writes by candlelight, hands shaking from cold, knowing tomorrow may not come. Hundreds of miles away, General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands over a map cluttered with red and blue pins, his face drawn with exhaustion as reports confirm the unthinkable: the German offensive has broken through. How long can they hold? He asks quietly. The answer lands like a hammer: for days, maybe less. If Bastogne falls, the Allied front could collapse, supply lines shattered, morale destroyed. There is no clear solution, no easy reinforcement, no safe road through the snow-choked chaos. One name lingers in Eisenhower's mind, heavy with risk and possibility: George S. Patton. Bold. Relentless. Perhaps the only man capable of moving fast enough to save them. As German guns close in on Bastogne and the noose tightens, Eisenhower whispers to himself, almost a prayer, "America is counting on you." The countdown has begun, for days to decide the fate of thousands, and maybe the war itself. December 19, 1944, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, Verdun. The room is heavy with silence, broken only by the scratch of pencils and the low murmur of aides delivering grim reports. Maps cover the table, roads choked with snow, frozen rivers, red arrows slicing deep into Allied territory. Bastogne sits at the center, circled in red. Surrounded. Isolated. Eisenhower stands motionless, hands resting on the edge of the table, eyes fixed on that small Belgian town where the 101st Airborne is fighting on borrowed time. Supplies are nearly gone. Ammunition rationed. Wounded men freezing where they lie. He exhales slowly and looks up at the men around him. "How quickly can we mount a relief operation?" he asks. No one answers immediately. Generals exchange glances, calculating distances, fuel consumption, road conditions, and the brutal reality of winter warfare. Finally, one voice breaks the silence. "Sir, under these conditions, it would take at least a week. Possibly longer." Eisenhower's jaw tightens. "We don't have a week," he says quietly. 4 days. 4 days is all they have. The problem is merciless. Allied forces in the north are pinned down. Units in the south are facing their own German pressure. To reach Bastogne would require pivoting entire corps in the middle of combat, rerouting supply lines, and forcing men and armor across icy roads that barely exist. Snowstorms choke visibility. Engines fail in the cold. One mistake, one stalled column, and the relief effort collapses before it begins. The room fills with tension as voices rise and fall, concerns about fuel, bridges, timing, coordination. Then, from the far side of the table, George S. Patton leans forward. Calm. Focused. Almost impatient. "I can do it," he says. Heads turn. Eyebrows lift. Eisenhower looks directly at him. "George," he asks, measured but probing, "can you genuinely do this?" Patton doesn't hesitate. "Yes, sir. I've already planned for it." A ripple of disbelief moves through the room. Patton explains, methodically but boldly, 3 divisions pivoting north, nearly 100 miles in winter conditions, attacking within 48 to 72 hours. The 4th Armored Division will lead. December 22nd. That's the date. Whispers break out. Some shake their heads. Others stare at the map as if willing it to make sense. One officer mutters, "It can't be done." Eisenhower raises a hand for silence, eyes never leaving Patton. "If you fail," he says, "the 101st is lost. Bastogne falls. The consequences will be severe." The words hang in the air, heavy with meaning: careers, lives, the fate of the front itself. Patton nods once. "I understand, sir. But if we move now, decisively, we can break through. The Germans won't expect it." Eisenhower turns back to the map, his thoughts racing. He thinks of the men freezing in Bastogne, of mothers and fathers waiting at home, of the fragile balance holding the Allied advance together. This is command at its cruelest, choosing between impossible odds and certain disaster. December 19th becomes December 20th, then the 21st, as orders are drafted, units alerted, engines warmed in the snow. The countdown is relentless. 48 hours. 72 at most. Eisenhower finally straightens, his decision etched into his face. "Do it," he says. Patton gives a brief nod and turns to leave, already thinking miles ahead, already moving north in his mind. As the doors close and the room exhales, Eisenhower remains behind, staring once more at Bastogne. The plan is set. The risk accepted. The clock is ticking. December 20th, 1944. Before dawn, Patton's Third Army begins to move. Orders ripple through frozen camps as engines cough to life in the dark, metal screaming against ice. Entire divisions disengage from their positions in the Saar region and pivot 90 degrees north, an audacious maneuver executed in the middle of a German offensive. The roads are barely roads at all, narrow frozen ribbons buried beneath snowdrifts, clogged with wreckage and refugees. Tanks slide, trucks stall, men push with numb hands while snow cuts into their faces like glass. Blizzards roll in without warning, grounding aircraft and swallowing columns whole. German artillery harasses the advance, shells bursting along tree lines, ambushes flaring up at crossroads. Every mile forward is paid for in time, fuel, and blood. December 21st arrives with no relief for the weather and no mercy from the enemy. Eisenhower receives reports by the hour, leaning over maps, tracing Patton's slow crawl north with his finger. Progress measured not in miles, but in villages taken, bridges crossed, hours survived. He whispers to himself as he reads the updates: if they fail, 10,000 paratroopers are lost, and the Ardennes campaign may collapse. In Bastogne, the situation grows desperate. Ammunition is nearly gone. Medics work with bare hands in freezing basements, the wounded crying softly to save strength. German guns pound the perimeter, and infantry probes test the lines day and night. When German envoys demand surrender, General McAuliffe's reply, "Nuts," spreads through the town like fire, lifting spirits even as the shells keep falling. December 22nd. Patton launches the main attack north. The 4th Armored Division leads, grinding forward through snow and fire. Tanks duel at point-blank range in icy villages, infantry clearing houses room by room. The advance slows, then pushes again. Eisenhower sends a blunt message: maximum effort. The 101st cannot hold much longer. Patton's reply is just as direct: the men are moving. We will break through. December 23rd brings a brief break in the clouds. Allied aircraft finally roar overhead, dropping precious supplies into Bastogne: ammo, food, bandages, small miracles falling from the sky. Inside Eisenhower's headquarters, tension tightens rather than eases. Relief from the air buys time, but not victory. The ground force must still break through. Reports come in late at night, staff officers whispering in disbelief as Patton's columns keep advancing despite losses and exhaustion. "He's actually doing it," someone murmurs. December 24th. Christmas Eve. Snow falls again, heavy and relentless. Patton's men fight through villages whose names blur together: Assenois, Chaumont, each one a battlefield. German resistance stiffens as the enemy realizes what is happening. Counterattacks slam into exposed flanks. Roads clog with burning vehicles. Yet the advance continues, mile by brutal mile. Eisenhower studies the clock more than the map now, marking the passage of hours, writing contingency letters he hopes will never be sent. In Bastogne, the 101st holds on, barely. Men sleep sitting up, weapons across their knees. Frostbite claims fingers and toes. Artillery never stops. December 25th dawns gray and bitterly cold. Christmas Day. There is no celebration, only waiting. Patton's lead elements are close now, close enough to hear the thunder of guns from Bastogne. Every report is urgent, every delay agonizing. Eisenhower's thoughts return again and again to the same number. 4 days. That was the limit. That was the promise. As night falls, word comes that Patton's armor has broken through the final German defenses blocking the road. The distance is measured in hours now, not days. Engines push through the darkness, headlights blacked out, men clinging to the hope that they are not too late. December 26th approaches. The final hours. Somewhere ahead, 10,000 surrounded soldiers wait, listening for sounds that mean salvation. The impossible march is nearing its climax, but the question still hangs in the frozen air: will Patton reach Bastogne in time? December 26th, 1944, early afternoon. Patton's Third Army crawls toward Bastogne, engines groaning, tracks cutting through snow-choked roads, artillery firing intermittently to suppress stubborn German positions. The landscape is a frozen wasteland, trees splintered by shells, villages scarred, roads slick with ice and mud. Soldiers push forward, faces etched with exhaustion, yet determination burns in their eyes. Tanks crush barricades, infantry advances through blizzards, rifles ready, every step measured against the clock. The long, brutal march of 100 miles in less than a week has brought them to the edge of salvation. By 3:30 p.m., forward scouts report visual contact with American positions inside Bastogne. The first exchange of signals, a wave, a shouted code, sparks a ripple of disbelief and elation among the surrounded 101st Airborne. Wounded men crawl from cellars, rifles cradled weakly in their arms, to see the approaching armor. One paratrooper, eyes wide through frostbitten cheeks, mutters to a comrade, "We're alive, they're here." Artillery fire begins to ease as German troops withdraw under pressure, allowing Patton's divisions to funnel into the town. At 4:15 p.m., the first tanks roll through the snow-dusted streets. Soldiers of the 101st, worn to the bone, cheer and wave, some collapsing in the snow, shaking hands, embracing strangers who have become brothers. Patton himself rides near the lead tank, surveying the scene with a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. A young lieutenant runs up, breathless. "General, they're holding. The town is secure." Patton nods, voice gruff but steady, "Just doing my job, Ike. The men did the real work." At Supreme Headquarters, Eisenhower paces, maps spread across the table, eyes darting at hourly reports. Then the phone rings, sharp, insistent. The aide hands it over. "George, we're through to Bastogne," the voice says. Eisenhower's hand freezes on the receiver. Relief crashes over him like a tidal wave. For a long moment, he cannot speak. He listens as Patton confirms that the 101st is relieved, that men are being resupplied, that the immediate threat has passed. "No, George," Eisenhower finally says, voice breaking slightly. "You moved an army 90 degrees in a blizzard. You saved 10,000 lives. That's why you're invaluable." Around him, staff whisper, some openly muttering, "He actually did it, against all odds." Eisenhower's shoulders drop, eyes moisten, and a quiet smile tugs at his lips. Back in Bastogne, soldiers of the 101st exchange stories of survival, hours spent in freezing cellars, bullets counted, comrades lost, victories endured. Patton surveys the town, acknowledging his men's sacrifices, the endless cold, the relentless drive that carried them through impossible conditions. He speaks briefly to each unit, offering words of encouragement and admiration. "You made this happen," he tells them. "We just cleared the path." Snow continues to fall outside Bastogne, blanketing the streets in white, but inside triumph and relief fill the air. Flags are raised over battered buildings, artillery ceases its fire, and the first hot rations reach paratroopers who have gone days without proper food. For the commanders, this is more than a military victory. It is proof of audacity, planning, and relentless determination under conditions that seemed insurmountable. Eisenhower sits quietly afterward, writing in his personal diary. Publicly, he will praise Patton's genius, the courage of the Third Army, and the resilience of the 101st. Privately, he reflects on the human cost, the moral weight of command, and the sheer scale of what has been achieved. Patton has saved not just Bastogne, but the Ardennes campaign, he writes. "What we've witnessed is operational brilliance and human courage." As night falls on December 26, 1944, the streets of Bastogne echo with the sounds of survival, soldiers moving through snow, and the soft murmur of gratitude. The impossible march has succeeded. Patton's audacity and the bravery of the 101st Airborne have turned the tide. Yet Eisenhower knows the war is far from over, and history will judge these hours not just for the relief of a town, but for the demonstration of leadership, courage, and the extraordinary human spirit. The stage is set for reflection, legacy, and the stories that will be told for decades to come. December 27, 1944. Eisenhower sat alone in his Verdun headquarters. The map of Bastogne spread across the table like a frozen battlefield caught in time. The snow outside glimmered on tanks and vehicles of Patton's Third Army, now regrouping after the grueling march. He lifted a pen and began writing a letter to Patton, carefully choosing words that balanced praise with the weight of command. "George, your planning, audacity, and execution saved over 10,000 lives. The speed, precision, and courage of your men under impossible winter conditions were beyond measure. Never forget the responsibility that comes with such talent." He paused, staring at the ink as if it could somehow convey the relief and pride swelling inside him. The private burden of command, the knowledge that failure would have meant disaster, not just for Bastogne, but for the entire Ardennes campaign, pressed on him still. For days, he had carried the moral weight of thousands of men frozen, hungry, and outnumbered. Now the crisis was over, but the reflections lingered. December 28th. He drafted a confidential note to General Marshall, honest in a way public statements never could be. Patton's audacity, often a concern to some, proved indispensable. His willingness to pivot 3 divisions 100 miles in 48 hours under blizzard conditions may well have changed the course of this offensive. I am relieved and grateful. January 2nd, 1945. A personal letter to Churchill followed, admiration mingled with a subtle caution of one who must manage brilliance. "George moves like lightning where others hesitate. His genius is clear, his audacity unmatched. But even extraordinary talent must be guided carefully, lest risk outweigh gain." Bastogne vindicated the decision to trust him. In his diary, Eisenhower allowed himself a deeper reflection, beyond letters and official praise. The relief of Bastogne is more than a tactical success. It is a testament to leadership under pressure, to human courage, and to the extraordinary talent that sometimes challenges every rule of conventional command. Patton acted decisively, boldly, and correctly. I trusted him with impossible odds, and he delivered. He thought of the men of the 101st Airborne, their frozen fingers, rationed bullets, relentless defense. And of Patton's armored columns, cutting through snow and enemy fire, unyielding. History would record the victory, but Eisenhower remembered the tension, the moral calculus, and the human drama, the lives hanging by hours, the courage demanded of soldiers and commanders alike. The relief of Bastogne had been a turning point in the Battle of the Bulge. Operationally, it demonstrated the audacity of moving 3 divisions 100 miles in the harshest winter, overcoming logistical impossibilities and enemy resistance alike. Strategically, it saved the Allied front from collapse and restored morale at a critical moment. But for Eisenhower, it was also a lesson in leadership, trust, decisive action, and the management of extraordinary talent under extreme pressure. In his memoirs years later, he reflected, "Patton's relief of Bastogne vindicated my trust, demonstrated operational excellence, and reminded me why extraordinary talent must sometimes be managed, not constrained. The victories of war are recorded in history, but the human decisions, the courage, and the audacity define true leadership." He leaned back, gazing out at the glimmering snow over Third Army's positions. Quiet pride, relief, and a profound sense of responsibility filled the room. The crisis had ended, but the lessons endured. History would remember the battle, the tactics, and the audacity. Eisenhower would remember the trust, the moral weight, and the men who made the impossible possible. Narration closes, history remembers the victories, but the human decisions, the audacity, and the courage define true leadership. Bastogne stands not only as a battle won, but as a testament to the indomitable spirit of men and the leaders who dare to trust them.